Oh, we're live. It's just telling me we're not. But we appear to be all live and ready to go. You'll have to excuse my switching to OBS multiple times there. I didn't realise we'd go live immediately. Hello, welcome to another Deconstructing. We're going to wait for a few people to turn up and then we're going to have a chat about my new single. And go through the Logic project and have a look at what's going on. So, are we actually live? I have this problem every time. I have to work out whether we're live and whether we're working and if it's all good, because some people don't see it. Looks like we're live, so we're going to start talking. Yep, that's all sorted. So, I'm going to start. I'm doing this series called Deconstructed, where I sit and I talk about a track that I've made, one of my singles usually, and we go through it and have a look. So without further ado, we should start having a look at the project. So the song we're going to talk about today is another song about drinking, in brackets, I'll cheers to that. It's the new single, came out yesterday. Happy St. Patrick's Day here. And yeah, we're going to open up the Logic project, have a look inside and see what's going on. So this should hopefully change your view and you should be able to see my screen. It's all new. The reason we're a little bit late today is because I've just updated my my Mac, and of course everything doesn't compute. It's all been updated, so I just had to sort all that out. So that's why we're a little bit late. Anyway, this is the Logic project for another song about drinking. I'll cheers for that. If I open up all of these sections, this is a bounce down version because as it comes down towards a mix down, I have to bounce a lot of the project down. But we've got about 50, in total about 100 tracks when you don't count the bounce down audio. So this is what it looks like. For those, if you've got any questions, do let me know, and I'll try and answer them because I do get quite technical in these things. So we've got the basis of the song. We've got drums, which are here. I'll just name that now so we don't forget it. This is sort of bassy and brass sounds. This is all the guitars, the acoustic guitars. This is all the other sort of guitar-y stuff. This is the piano, accordion. This is just odd bits. And this is the vocal. So there's not that much to the track. There's a lot of layers, but there's not actually that much going on in terms of different bits in different places. So I'm going to play the song through. We might listen to it in its entirety. And then we'll start looking at what makes this song work. And hopefully we won't end up with a load of crashes like last time.
Here's another song about drinking. Oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about the good old times when we were all half-mashed. So cheers to the barman, to the pints and to the draft. And we'll sing another song about drinking. And oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about whiskey. Oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about the spirits bar and the stuff that's out the back. So pour me a double and I'll try to pay you back. When we sing another song about whiskey, and oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about cider, oh, cheers to that.
Does go on a bit, this song.
About the 8.5 that's brewing in the vat. Down a pint of grumpy from that good old summer.
It's only about 2 minutes long though, so I am going to play the whole song, but then we'll talk about it and deconstruct it.
Oh, cheers to that.
The piano solo in this song is a massive part of the song, and I can't wait to tell you all about how we got that into the song as well.
Here's another song about drinking. Oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about the good old times when we were all half-mashed.
Anyway,
Cheers.
hopefully by now you'll have heard the song enough times to know what's going on. So yeah, that's the song. I'll cheers to that. It was written, I want to say last February time. We never actually got to play it live before the lockdown. So yeah, I want to say March, February, maybe even January last year, pre-pandemic. And yeah, it's a cheery song. I wrote it as my equivalent of the Barley Mow. I wanted a drinking song that basically meant that people would drink along as they... with the Barley Mow, you say good luck and you drink. And I wanted to write a song like that. So that was the whole idea behind this song. And I wanted to create a vibe of as much of a party atmosphere as I could. I wanted to create this sound that sort of was large and everyone... could hear, and it sounded like a big group of people, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the drums. The drums are we've got drums, we've got bass, we've got acoustic guitars, we've got various different other instruments in the sort of folk style. We've got piano, accordion, there's some sound effects, and there's the vocal, and that's all it is. It's very simple, and it doesn't need to be that complex for what we're doing today. So let's start with the acoustic, because the acoustic guitar, I really had a certain sound in mind. So this acoustic guitar sounds like this. You hear it at the start of the track and you hear it through the track. So this acoustic guitar was taken on one of my Epiphones. It's the guitar you'll see me play live when I'm playing gigs. It didn't need to be the biggest thing in the track, so it's my live guitar, not my studio guitar. So let's have a look at the channel that's going on there and what I'm doing. Now, there was some processing happening before I bounced everything down, but most of the stuff happens in the mix. So here it is. So we've got a bit of EQ going on by the looks of it. I always take out... yes, so this is a mix thing. It's not necessarily for the shape of the sound, but there's a lot of low mids that happen when you start to stack up guitars, and so there's a low mid cut around there. That's where the vocal sits as well, so it probably took that out to push the vocal out a bit more. That's where your honky sort of... just below the honk, actually. That's where your sort of harsh frequencies came through, so it was probably something poking through. The way I took this guitar was the DI going into an audio interface. Also, I had my trusty... what's it called now? This mic. Hold on, I'll find it for you. Where are you? There you are. Oh! No, that's lights. I believe it's this mic. So this is the mic I use for all of my guitar takes and most of my instrument takes. It is a SE22000T. It's a tube mic. Hopefully I've got it in shot because I can't see. And it does the job. Do you know what I mean? It's got a tube in it. Standard condenser microphone with a large diaphragm. And yeah, it's got this warm tubeness to it. If anyone was interested in that. And that's what I use on most of my guitar takes, actually. Anything acoustic, anything mandolin, anything like that. That's what I use for it. And there's a magic box, which is actually... It's wired into my studio, so I can't show it you, but there's a magic box, which is a preamp, and it just creates warmth. So yeah, that's what's going on sound-wise. There's, I believe this is the mic. And this is the DI. Not much of a difference in the sound, to be fair. Oh no, that's not the mic and DI. It was a mic and a DI. It's been summed down to individual channels the way I like it, just for space reasons. And yeah, so that's two takes, actually. That's two separate takes. And it's I always double track my guitars on anything that's meant to be a sort of large sounding song. And that's just so that it's got a bigger sound. So yeah, as I said, Panning wise, there is a sort of chorus effect going on. It's a delay that creates the width. It's hard to explain because I did it before the mix down, so it's not actually on here. But that's then going off to bus 10, which is this here, which is an acoustic bus, and that is we've got this thing, a studio rack. Ah, yes, I should really mention this. This is a really cool plugin. It's free. Studio Rack is made by Waves, and it's meant for Waves plugins to basically create your own plugins. You can chain things in certain ways. I could add a particular plugin, say Submarine or Talk, which we'll talk about in a minute. But also you can split bands off and add individual plugins to certain bands. What I'm using it for here, and considering this is free, it's a great tool, is to isolate the low end with a multi-band split and basically make the low end central. And I do it on the master bus as well, but I always do it on my guitars because of the way that as I said, I use delays and such to widen the guitars. And so this frequency here, which you'll only hear if you've got headphones on, that is being pulled in with this width knob to about 26. It's just tidying it up. It's also being turned down, I believe, a little bit. So yeah, that's what's going on there. And then a bit of channel EQ, a boost in the highs. This is all mixed stuff. This is just where I use a lot of EQ on my mixes when I've got so many different guitars going on. And I'll show you all the individual guitar bits that are going on in this track. I like to sort of give everything its own space in the frequency spectrum. So yeah, what'll be happening here is sort of a lot of brightness. Obviously, I didn't think it was poking through enough. Little boost around 400, that's probably for body. Little ducks here and there, they're probably frequencies or rings that I didn't like. This guitar, this whole track is sort of based along the sound of the Sega sessions, the We Shall Overcome album by Bruce Springsteen, and the Live in Dublin album of his. That's what the sort of sound we're going for in this track. And yeah, that's what's going on there with the guitars, and the guitar is very much modelled on the sound at the start of Pay Me My Money Down, which you'll hear now if you listen to that album. So yeah, that's what's going on with the acoustic guitars. It's important to give the guitars a space, and as I said, to manage that low end. Because of the double tracking, the low end sort of bounces a little bit, and that's keeping it in place and keeping it central, particularly in that low end where it needs the body. It's really, honestly, try that in your mix bus. It'll completely change your life. Right, okay, let's move on to other guitars, other things that are going on guitar-wise. So this is sum 8. So everything obviously kicks in after that first intro. Here, you might hear some breathing or something. Oh, yes! Bright sound. Now I've isolated the individual sounds. You're probably hearing a lot more than you originally did. So there's a lot going on there. What's going on there? We've got banjo. Now this banjo, I did actually have a session player lined up, but because of COVID, I just didn't have, he didn't have the time to sort of work on it, and I didn't have the time to get him into an actual studio. And I'm very peculiar about the way that my sound is. I like to have a particular tightness, and I don't like much room in what I record. So because it's not such a feature in the mix, I sort of went with a MIDI banjo, and that sounds a bit like this. Terrible MIDI banjo, but in the mix,
Another song about the spirit bar and stuff that sounds the back.
You can barely hear it.
Me a double and I'll try
So
to
it doesn't
pay.
really matter that much that it's not the best sound, because you don't have to feature, particularly with a mix this big, you don't have to feature every single element. And so it's a terrible MIDI banjo, but it's hidden in the mix. But without it, if I take it out of the mix,
Oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about the 8.5 that's brewing in the vat.
you lose a layer and you instantly just the energy drops. And you'll find that with anything that I take out. If I take anything out of the mix, you'll hear it just disappears and all of a sudden the energy drops. So everything's taken up its frequency, and as I said, I mean, there's a bit of EQ bringing the sound up. Probably before them bounce down before the mix, I had some. My favourite plugin to put on anything that's a guitar or a stringed instrument is Schweppes Omnichannel, just like a Swiss Army knife. And I've probably got some kind of saturation going on with that, but I wouldn't be able to tell you because it's not on the final mix project. But yeah, and a bit of compression, which is most likely just pulling up those. Yeah, it's all it's doing is pulling on the bits that poke out a little bit to make it fit in the mix glue, as they call it. We've got a Zuki. Now, I got this for my birthday, and Christmas. This fella, the Ozark. Guitar-bodied Bouzouki. Now, I bought this because I'm very inspired by Show of Hands and what they do. And Steve Knightley plays well, it's a mandocello, but this can do the same job with the full body as a mandocello can. So, yeah. So that's what that is, and I'm going to play you a bit of that and tell you about what it's doing in the mix. So it's quite quiet in the mix, actually, listening to it now. It's not even doing what I thought it was, which was the body. In fact, I'm cutting most of the body. This is a mixing, as I said. Every instrument that you put in, particularly on a track like this, just needs that little bit of EQ and a little bit of work. So without the EQ, there's that horrible, honky, hollow sound. And although it's taking some of the magic out of the body, I don't like that horrible... It's not mud, it's just above mud. It's that sound. That's perfect. That's going to definitely make the shortened edit that I upload later. That frequency just doesn't do you any favours, and so I've cut that from the Bouzouki, and it's doing the job of a 12-string. Let's be honest. It's filling out the sound and just adding a bit more body to what the guitars are doing. Mandolins, of course. There's got to be a mandolin on a folk track. These are very bright. And the pan left and right, you've got the one left and one in the centre. So this is one thing I did do with this track, which is I put things not necessarily where they're going to be pan-wise. Normally everything will be, you pan one side left and one side right. But this song, as I said, so there's a mandolin there, and then there's one of the mandolin center, and then the Bouzouki, which has those high frequencies, is on the right. And when you put them all together, you don't start missing frequencies because they're in their own space. They've got a space in the mix and a place to be, and obviously the way I've EQ'd them, again, these have been bounced down. I recorded them the same way I recorded the acoustic guitar, which is with a tube mic about this far away from me on a stand, and and that's the room, and then the DI, and I blend the sounds together, cut the frequencies I don't like, and it comes through there. Now, MIDI guitar. Oh, this is interesting. I started to run out of time. And taking, anyone who's a musician will know this, taking a sound and making it right takes a lot of time. It's even harder to do without being in a studio with an engineer and people to work with you. So I was heading towards the end of the track at this point, and I went, this just doesn't quite sound right. This doesn't quite have that... high end and width when everything kicks in. So these MIDI guitars are done on Contact. I would load one up for you to show you, but unfortunately my computer might crash, and we learnt the last stream that happens more often than it should when we start including things. So yeah, these are two fake guitars, sampled guitars, and I think they sound alright, so we'll play a bit of that one. One's doing this. Not bad for MIDI. It's a sample, so it sort of does this thing where you play the chord on the keyboard, and I'll just swap this. This one's doing a sort of offbeat thing when you put them together, and a panned either side as well, so that you've got that width again. It's all about width and space when you put it together with everything else in that channel. If I put it with the acoustic guitar as well. The acoustic is obviously quite central, but everything else is wide. And I am doing the same thing that I did with, I'm not actually. I should have done with that the same thing I did with the acoustic guitars, which is using Studio Rack to pull in the lows and the low mids. And if you didn't see me talk about that, I'm uploading a highlights video at the end, probably tomorrow morning now because it's quite late. But if you do want to watch this whole stream back, there's a little link over there, I think, somewhere. There's a little link to my Patreon. The full video is going to be the full video of this stream is going to be exclusively available on my Patreon page to my Patreon supporters. And I think it's for people who pay £6 a month will get this, and we'll be able to see what I did again. So if you do miss anything, let me know. And if you have any questions while we're live, do let me know, and I will answer them live. So let's do drums. Drums are a key part. So these drums were done live. They weren't done in a studio, obviously, but they are live drums, which is a rarity for a James Harriman track because I like to keep everything in the box. I'm just opening up a message. So Finley Bradley did the drums, the guy who plays with me live. Fantastic drummer, wonderful at what he does. I'm just going to pull up his message because he did tell me a little bit more about what he used. He said he used his full kit. It's a Mapex rock kit coated ambassadors on the skins with some techie, nerdy stuff. He's modded his kit basically, so it's a bit wider and a bit larger in sound. It's the same kit we use live, I believe, or a similar kit to the one we use live. Very heavy crashes, which caused me a lot of issues, but very loud, heavy crashes to sort of get this big band style thing. He hasn't told me what mics he used, but I presume because it's his home setup, it was mic'd with a very basic live drum mic setup. Probably the Audix. If you've ever played live, and the sound engineer's bought his own microphones, you'll have seen the Audix D6 and all that lot. And it was probably done with those, I'll be honest, and a couple of overheads. He sent me 4 different takes, and I comped between the 4 of them. So let's play Finley's drums for a minute. So normally, as I said, in an ideal world, we'd record all this in a proper studio, and I'd mix it all myself. This is all just basically whatever Finley liked sound-wise going into his audio interface, and I got a stereo mix. That's all I got. Which is nice. I mean, it still sounds decent. So there's this talk. I will talk about talk now. So one thing I will say is I didn't like where his snare was. If I take talk off. So his snare's a little bit too tuned, a little bit too high for my liking. So I brought it down with this plugin called Talk. I might have brought it up actually. I brought it up. So Talk, as you can see, you probably have never heard of this plugin, but it's really useful. What it is it can take a drum sound and change it after recording. It's like tuning your kit. So you focus on a sound. You find the pitch and then you move it where you want it with this pitch knob. I should be able to, if I copy this over to B, I think that's how you do it. Yep, there it is. And then I go on to setup B. I can show you how this works. I can change his pitch. Hear how that's changing where the snare is? So yeah, what I'm doing there with Talk is just pitching him up by 100 cents. And it's just picking the note that I wanted that snare to be, as I would have done in a studio with a session player. I would have gone through and found that sound, but it's a really useful tool to have, and it's on sale on Waves all the time. And yeah, you should check that out. And that's how I'm sort of adjusting the sound. I also found that the snare was a little bit too flat. So if I take this EQ off, oh, we're not soloed. So all I did was just boosted the snare. Gives it a bit more clack. And there's also, before I bounced it all down for the mix, there was probably a transient master, which is what I use on a lot of my drums, just to give them a lot more attack, just because, again, we didn't record it in a studio. I didn't have the individual elements or the individual stems. I was literally given that bounce down. There's another thing as well that I've done with the drums, which is there wasn't quite enough low end, so I've got this plugin called Subkick. Where is it? I'll find it on here to find the name of it. You can't see it on this because, again, it's a bounce down. But if you're ever finding that you've got a drum recording or samples or something and it just doesn't sound quite live enough, there's this free plugin called... I've got so many plugins. Waves Factory SK10. Now, the SK10, the Subkick, is a really cool thing. If I'm ever taking in a studio that has it, I put it there. It's great on bass as well. And it looks a bit like a speaker backwards. Anyway, this little plugin is designed to emulate having that as a mic. And you can mix it in. I won't show you what it does now. But that's on there. And it sounds like this. All it's doing is picking up the low end of the kick and accentuating it. When you put it with the rest of the kit, if I take that out now, it just gave me the option to give a bit more oomph to the kick as well. There's also some stomps. You've got to have some stomps in a track like this. All right, well, that's drums done. Let's do the bit you're all probably here for, that nice, tasty brass bass thing that's going on. So I loved bringing like this up. I loved making this sound. So this is basically the driving sound of the album, of the track. So it's not. I'll be honest. It's not my best production of brass sections or anything like that. But then again, why does it need to be? It's hidden in the mix. You'll find this a lot. It doesn't have to be perfect if it's going to be hidden in the mix. If it's going to be a feature, make it right. But this is in the mix enough to not have to worry about it. So we've got the bass. Now, I played the bass. Normally it's being Ellis Tucker on most of the tracks that I've been on. Same with a lot of stuff. I don't tend to play bass on my tracks just because there's better players about. But yeah, that's just my Cort bass or Cork bass. I'd love to show you the settings, but I've bounced it down. Oh, this is a common theme tonight. it's basically a DI box sound and an amp sound, and it's blended together. Bit of compression. There's always some compression on the James Harriman sounds, bass-wise, just because we like compression on the sound. So yeah, that's doing that. Basic sort of walking stuff as well. We've got this tuba. There's 2 tubas, I believe, on this. Playing this now. Yeah, 2 tubas from Contact's session horns. I've gone over to the scoring software they have nowadays and gone over to the actual sort of proper orchestral stuff, but this was produced before I did that, so... And there's one on the left here, one on the right. Just slight different variations on the stuff. So you can hear that, and that's playing the same thing as the bass. And there's a little bit of EQ, obviously, to make them work. I think there's just a little bit of, just the tiniest bit down there. Down there, around 200 to 500, around 100 to 500 hertz, you end up with so much low end, and you just have to manage it. This is, okay, so the accordion you hear, some of it is live, some of it isn't. This bit isn't. This is a Logic stock accordion poker bass thing, doing the same thing as the brass. And you put them together. It's what gives it that Oktoberfest feel, but then that's not all that's going on down there. We've got this offbeat brass as well. Again, this is from Session Horns. Session Horns, I use it, particularly used to use it a lot before I got into the Contact stuff. I used to use it a lot for just for things that are going to be hidden in the background, as you saw on the last stream with Snakes and Ladders. Hid bits and bobs in the background. This is no exception. I like to put brass sections into my songs, and this is sort of like an offbeat thing going on. We'll hear it. Again, it sounds terrible. A bit like the banjo. It sounds truly terrible, but it's hidden in the mix, so it doesn't matter that much. That's like a 4-piece brass section, and when you pop in the low brace. So yeah, that's clever, I think. There's this actually. I think I must have cut a load of bass. I've popped a load of bass in there and cut everything below 100. Now you're going to want to do that with anything you do. That's not a bass sound. We talked about the acoustic guitar. Some 8 is those things. We've talked about those. We're getting through this pretty quickly. Okay, let's move on to what John did for me. Now, I don't play piano at all, and I don't play accordion at all. So I was very, 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 very lucky when the wonderful session player / fantastic musician in his own right, John Hare, who I somehow magically have on Facebook, said, I'm bored, find some work if you've got a track that you want people to play something on, and I'll play on it. And so I dropped him a message and started working with John Hare, who is great. You'll know him from Nick Parker and the False Alarms. You'll know him from Gavin Osborne in the comments section. And you'll know him for a few other things he's done as well. But a very in-demand session player. I'm so happy I managed to get him on the track. So he brought me in. He gave me the piano and the accordion for this track, and it makes the whole track. So it's a live accordion. It's only the is it the right side? The actual keys side, because his bass section and chordal section is out of tune apparently. So That's why it's only them. I asked him as well what he used to record it, and he says it's the Rode NT2A, which is a standard sort of condenser microphone. You'll see that everywhere. And yeah, it sort of bounces up between those lows and those highs. And we've got this solo that comes in here. So I actually got the solo on a separate track, so I can isolate the solos. This solo makes the track. Because it needed a solo. So, that piano isn't a real piano, I think. I'm pretty sure he told me this. It's from his Nord. I think he plays a Nord. Might be a Roland. From one of these sort of red keyboards. And it's a nice sound though. What have I done to it? Just a bit of EQ. Probably a bit of low mids, which is what I scooped out of the guitars, if you remember earlier, to find a space for. So what I probably wanted to do, if I take that out now, yeah, just gives it a bit more realism.
Whiskey and all cheese.
So yeah, that's solo when you put it in context. Really makes the track, in my opinion, and this is one thing I should really point out. Work with collaborators, work with other people, particularly if you're a solo artist like me and you want something to happen and you want someone to do something. For example, I wanted a solo of some sort. Approach people and work with people, because they'll bring ideas to the table that you would have never thought of. I had a cheesy sort of violin solo in mind, but actually the song's got a completely different violin. In fact, before the accordion solo was put in, I didn't even think the accordion would be such a sort of I didn't even know I'd have accordion in the track. I thought I'd have keys. And so yeah, work with people. Right, let's do this. This is the cheers you hear here.
Cheers!
Now, this is bounced down. This is why it was at 100 tracks, because there are so many different me's going cheers. There's versions of me going cheers, versions of me going cheers, versions of me going cheers. And you don't hear them, but when you put them all together, you get this.
Cheers!
That is all me. As I said, this song was recorded during lockdown, so there wasn't really an option. If I'd have had the option, I'd have had everyone round my house or in a studio and had about 20 people all yelling cheers and yelling, oh, cheers to that. I'd have even probably recorded the whole thing with a full band and got all these session parts played live. But we couldn't do that. Same with the cheers in glasses that you hear. That's just a load of samples from Splice, like 30 different glass samples, and all played at different moments to make it go cheers. So that's what's going on there. Right, okay, vocal. We'll move through the vocal pretty quickly because I hate my own vocals. As is pretty standard with a James Harriman track, you've got the double-tracked vocals. I always do the double-track live, but I've just discovered a cool plugin called Vocaline. Now, Vocaline is saving me hours of work on this track. So I'll play a little bit of the vocal.
Here's another song about drinking. All cheers to that. Here's another song about the good old times when we were...
Is that not... Where's that going? Why are you not playing?
And all cheers to that.
I don't know why that's not playing. That's normally playing. There's normally a double track on that vocal. I'm not quite sure what's going on. It's because I haven't processed it. Yeah, anyway, Vocaline is basically pulling all the vocals, the double-tracked vocals together.
Here's another song about whiskey. All cheers to that.
harmonies
Here's another
wise.
song about the spirits bar.
It's all me. I'd love it to be a bunch of other people, but it's all me. And everything is double tracked. There's always 2 of everything, and they're panned. As you can see, that one's going to the left, that one's going to the right. There's another one right on the edges, and it's all about, as I said, give your instruments, give whatever you're using a space, and if you can find a space for it, it's going to sound good. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much more I can say about my vocal. I used the same microphone I showed you earlier. There's Vocal Rider there. That's another real time-saving plugin. It basically moves...
Sing another song about drinking, and all cheers to that.
Just automates your vocal for you. Saves a lot of time, levels-wise. And the same thing happens on all of those have got a Vocal Rider on it. Yeah, it's very easy. Okay, let's talk about the really cool thing in this track, which is the space. Now, I really normally like everything to sound dry and to sound close and tight. That is what the James Harriman sound is. It's very rare you'll find something that has width, not width, has a massive reverb. You've probably never heard me with a big reverb behind my vocal. Something subtle, maybe, but nothing big. This track, on the other hand, I started doing something different. Where's something that's being sent to this bus? So there's a bus, and it's a room bus. Because I wanted to create this sound of everyone being in the same room. Now, obviously, with this being... oh, gosh. With this being fake instruments... So obviously, with this being fake instruments, a lot of fake instruments, and also a lot of stuff recorded by me separately, individually, I just wanted to make a space. So we've got this thing called Reflector. Now, Reflector is great at, I think it's, do they call it convolution reverbs, collusion reverbs, something? It starts with a C. It's a particular type of reverb, and what the reverb is an actual sampled space. Instead of being a digital reverb, they've gone and they've put a beep out in a sound, and that sound is then just being replicated. So instead of being a fake reverb that sounds fake, it sounds like a real room. And everything, I kid you not, if I show you the thing, at some point during this project, every single sound is being sent to this room bus. They're being sent before the brass thing, some of them being sent on the overall channel, but everything at some point gets sent to this sound. And if we solo the room send, you'll hear what it sounds like. Can you hear that? It sounds like a room. It sounds like what you'd hear down the hall, 2 doors down. Don't know why not everything is turning up in that mix. Everything. But everything is being sent to that. I'm not sure why only the vocals you could hear, but like everything is going to that. Is that going to bus 30? Yeah. Everything's going to bus 30. If I take that out the mix though, if I delete that out the mix, you'll hear how much of a difference it makes.
In the back, start a pint of grumpy from that good old Somerset. And we'll sing another song about cider, and all cheers to that.
You hear how whenever I take that out, it just becomes flatter. Yeah, I mean, you might not notice it so much if you're not listening to it on headphones, but it makes a massive difference on that brass section. And everything is sending to it. I don't know why it's only playing certain sounds. I can bring that up actually. Okay, maybe it isn't all sending that. It was all sending to that. As sometimes things get a little bit confused in the final mixes. But yeah, that's how it sounds like it's all in the same space. And I'm using that as a creative choice, though. Not so much as a you'll hear it. It's more of a it's there and it feels like it's a feel reverb. There's also this echo sphere,
Times when we were all half mashed. So cheers to the bar,
which is just a slight delay. This is a really cool free plugin you can find. The CLA Echo Sphere by Waves. I'm really getting to my Waves plugins at the moment. And what it's doing is a delay and a reverb for just the vocal. Because as much as I say everything needs to be in the same space, it's quite useful to have another space for other elements of the mix. And it strengthens the vocal.
barman, to the pints and to the draft. And we'll sing another song
very
about
subtly in
drinking.
the mix.
And all cheers to that.
There's also, I don't know if you've noticed, a bit of distortion going on a lot of the vocals. That's just general clipping. That's me being lazy as an engineer. But it's also there because there's a little bit of analog saturation on all of these channels. Again, I can't show it you because it was done pre-mix. It was done on the bounce down before I mixed it all. But we've got Schweppes Omni channel. This is the Swiss Army knife I was talking about earlier. And all that's doing is... What are you doing? Oh, you're a de-esser. No, you're not. What are you doing on that channel? Okay, maybe that was just there. I don't know. But that normally has a saturation on it. I also like to use console. That's just an EQ. You can use that actually. If you haven't got any analog saturation plugins, you can use Logic's built. If you've got Logic Pro, you can use Logic's built-in things, but built-in EQs that emulate desks, just to give that bit of drive that I'm on about. Let me show you on. Well, let me show you on the console EQ, and let's use an instrument that's going to be obvious on, like, say, the bass. If I pop it on the bass, this is just completely out of context, but I think you might want to hear it.
All cheers to that. All cheers.
Let's mute that out. So this is a really cool tip for anyone that wants that sort of more analog sound. Just going to pull it to a place where the bass comes in. You've got to basically load up Logic, go to the EQs. Oh, system overload, yeah, of course. And then go to vintage EQ selection. These EQs are my favourite EQs to use for sound because they're modelled on the gear, on the sort of vintage gear that has just something to it. So you've got the console EQ, which is based on the sort of classic, not Neve desks, SS solid state desks, and the tube EQ, which is modelled on the Pultex, and they're the two that I use. The console EQ, as I said, with a bit of drive, you'll hear it. If I turn that down, you might not hear it as much actually, but it drives just a little bit basically. This maybe the console version doesn't do it as well, but I know that the Silky Tube EQ does it. Here it is. So there's a drive model here, and when you start adding boosts, low boost, you can hear it there. Just subtle drive. Can you hear that? It's not as reactive as an actual thing, but the idea is it's modelling the analog sort of saturation that goes through going through those things. And I like to add, even though everything I do is in the box, I like to add these sort of analog sounding things. Another good one for it is if you go into, it's under Essa. There's this thing called Effect Rack by Sound Toys. That's also really good for it. And before I bounced these tracks down for the mix, everything went through a instance of Sound Toys with this decapitator. And what decapitator does is just grinds things up a bit. And it's emulating classic desks and driving through tubes of actually having a desk there. So if I drive it, you'll hear it. I mean, that's an extreme example, but you pop it on like that. Thinking about it, actually, effect track is on the master bus. So I'll go. So yeah, analog sounds, sort of bits and bobs going on. I've also got Neutron 3 going on there, which is quite good, quick fix plugin for if you can't fix something, then Isotope probably can. I used to hate Isotope plugins because I used to think they were a little bit lazy. But Isotope, I wouldn't recommend their auto mastering stuff. It's good for its limiter, which is quite transparent. But I use this quite a lot, which is Neutron. And what it's doing is it's analysed what it is, which I told it was a vocal. And then it's sort of put me a compressor, which is limiting this is on the vocal. It's limiting things to stop them from peaking too much in the mix, and an EQ, which is brightening the highs up a little bit and pulling out a couple of frequencies that I don't like, and that's mixed in as well, which is quite cool. So yeah, there's that. So on my master bus, and I will sign off after that because I'm nearly finished with my pint. On my master bus, we have a solid bus compressor, which is standard on pretty much every one of my tracks. I'll have this somewhere. On most of my masters, it's just glue. It's mixed glue. This is on a lot of my buses as well as a bus glue. It's just Native Instruments, solid bus comp. It's just nice. It's quite transparent as well. Got an L2. That's not actually doing anything. I think that was for gain, but it's gone. Tube EQ. Told you I'd got a tube EQ. This tube EQ is wonderful on high end. It's really, really good for bringing out the sparkle in a mix. And if I could, I would buy the analog version of this, the Pultec EQs, and just use it on all of my mixes, because it's basically an instant brightness thing. It instantly puts sparkle on your top end of your mixes. So yeah, that's boosting around 12k with quite a high bandwidth, so it affects quite a lot of the high end. And I've got another one of those here, taking the 6k, which I don't know why, but we'll find out in a moment when I take it out. Linear EQ, that is boosting some frequencies just to make it sound a little bit more to the reference tracks. This is all sort of quite complex and a whole different thing. There's another linear EQ there, just doing odd bits and tucks on the mix to really shape the sound. And there's this effect rack, which I wouldn't normally put on a master bus. I'll point this out to you. This, as I said earlier, is great. Are you going to crash? No, you're not. This is great as a plugin. Decapitator is great for getting this analog emulation of having an actual desk, which is what I wanted to emulate with this track. I wanted to emulate a load of people in a room. And so this is the E models. I wouldn't be able to tell you right now, but it emulates the classic sort of Abbey Road sound desk. And it's sort of very Beatlesy, very classic. And it just does something to the sound. And I'm driving it a little bit through that just to give it a sound. So if I take the master bus off, and you'll hear what it does. Take Studio Rack out. Yeah, there's an instance of Studio Rack there, which would have been pulling 250 in, but obviously I thought it didn't need it, so it's not doing that. So I'm going to take off the master and slowly add the elements in, and you'll hear what they're doing, and then we're going to finish it there. Let's take it back to start, to where everything kicks in. round about here.
Song about drinking.
There we go.
And all cheers to that. Here's another song about whiskey.
So, bus compressor.
All cheers to that.
All that's doing is just pulling the volume up a little bit, and also, you see that happening there? It's just pulling it a little bit every time that it peaks. Not very often. L2 isn't being used. Although the L2 has a sound anyway. It adds a sound. We've got the tube test. Right. If you've got headphones on, you'll definitely notice this. Maybe not as much as I thought you'd notice. If I pull this up, you'll hear what it's doing. It's only subtle, but if I pull this up, you'll hear what it's doing. That harsh frequency on the guitars. That frequency is just being boosted slightly to pull the guitar out of the mix, but in the mix.
We were all half mashed. So cheers to the barman.
I'm getting sick of this song. I don't know about you. We're nearly there. We've done about an hour. So linear EQ again.
Here's another song about whiskey.
Just lifting that low end. Tube EQ. Doing the same thing as the other one, just in a different frequency. There's not much going on, but this is where the magic happens. Oh, did you hear that? So there's volume. Obviously there's a lift in volume, but also there's a change in the shape of the sound. And that's what I like that decapitator for. You see what it's doing there? On this little attitude thing. So whenever the vocals come in, you notice it spike up because they're pushing it a little bit more. It's just like driving it through a desk.
Here's another song about drinking. Oh, cheers to that.
Yeah, you can hear what's going on there. And that's about everything going on in this track. Wow, we got through the entire track this time. Normally we don't get quite so far. There's nothing else really going on. It's quite a simple track when you look at it, but it's a nice track, and I'm quite proud of what's going on mix-wise. It's probably the best mix track we've got so far. As I said, very quick thank yous. I should really change back to this transition. Right, well, that's the end of today's live stream. It's been wonderful to chat to you all and show you how it works. If you do have any questions about anything I've said, let me know, and I'll try and let you know. And also, the full version of this stream will be out on Patreon, exclusively on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/JamesAndAGuitar. And you'll be able to find that, as well as loads of other exclusive content. And the highlights of this stream will be uploaded to YouTube and Facebook as soon as I've edited them. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two. Hopefully I've shown you a trick or two of mine. And go out and stream another song about drinking, in brackets, all cheers to that. It's out on all platforms now. I'm going to let the song ring out for you. Let's go from the solo.
Another song about cider, and all cheers to that.
I do love this song though. And we're doing these once a month, so I suppose I'll see you in a month or so.
Here's another song about drinking. Oh, cheers to that. Here's another song about the good old times when we were all half mashed.
You can buy them. You can buy these on my Bandcamp.
And we'll sing another song about And all cheers to that. All cheers to that. All cheers to that.
So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you'll tune into the next Deconstructed, which will be next month. Let me know what song you want it to be, and I'll see you there. See you soon.